Welcome, warriors. This is the first of our October Awareness Survivor Stories, and we are beginning with a woman who has survived so much with respect to her breast cancer journey, and not just once. But I'll let her share her story with you. Grab a tissue and listen to this incredibly brave woman who is nothing short of an amazing miracle. Let's rock.
Does your past haunt you? Maybe you're in a storm that feels like it will never end. Are you fighting a battle that's rendering you hopeless? Maybe you feel like you're fighting alone, but your battle was not meant to be a solo endeavor. You were meant to be a warrior among warriors. My name is Heather, and I grew up thinking my battles were nobody's business until I found myself in an abusive marriage and felt cut off from all avenues of help. In this podcast, you will hear warriors' words. They will tell you of their battles, both won and lost, their journeys, and their lessons learned along the way. But we don't stop there. These warriors will share how they have applied those lessons to go from warrior to survivor to thriver. Whether it's an abusive marriage, illness, mental health crisis, or any number of traumas this world dishes out, these warriors will use their words to help you find the beauty in your broken, move beyond your battles, and become the thriver God created you to be. Pick up your sword or boxing gloves and join the battle. Your words are powerful, my friends. Make them warrior words.
Today, our guest is Gillian Lichota. She is the founder and CEO of the I Rise Above Foundation, a nonprofit US-based organization dedicated to empowering, inspiring, and supporting young women to cultivate an outstanding quality of life during and after breast cancer. She is also a mother, marine biologist, mountain climber, adventure travel enthusiast, and breast cancer thriver. Shortly after enduring years of grueling infertility treatments and losing a second trimester pregnancy, Gillian was elated to find out she was pregnant again. The joy was short-lived, however, as she was soon diagnosed with stage 3 pregnancy-related breast cancer. The dream she had of becoming a mother was quite literally going to kill her. Gillian endured several rounds of chemotherapy and a mastectomy while pregnant. After the safe delivery of her son, she continued with more chemotherapy, radiation, and multiple surgeries until she was deemed to be in remission. Remission was short-lived. Breast cancer returned, metastasizing to her lungs. Facing imminent death revealed profound truths of living. Like a phoenix, Gillian has risen from the ashes of illness stronger, wiser, and more aligned with her purpose and passion. Today, through various offerings, Gillian is dedicated to providing women in their 20s, 30s, and 40s targeted, age-appropriate, and integrated health and wellness resources and tools that enable them to rise above the residual effects of breast cancer, so they can heal, live well, and challenge their respective prognoses. Now, before we hear Gillian's incredible story, here is a review from Olivia R. Wow, incredible, much needed. Thank you for providing hope in a broken world. Thank you, Olivia. It is indeed a broken world. And it is my desire to spread that hope to as many people as possible. Now, would you like me to read your review on an upcoming episode? Please go to Apple Podcasts and leave a review for the show. Your comments and your star ratings help people find the Warrior Words podcast, and it only takes a few minutes of your time. And as I mentioned in last week's episode, I have a few listings in my Ko-fi store that are pink and purple to stomp out breast cancer and domestic violence. You can find them all at Ko-fi.com, and that's Ko-fi, Ko-fi.com/warrior words, warrior. Okay, y'all know I don't like to edit, so here we go. The website is Ko-fi.com, Ko-fi.com /warrior words shop, SHOP. And then another option that I wanted to bring your attention to is from a company called Lila Rose. And they make hair clips, all sorts of hair accessories. But they have a breast cancer awareness ribbon hair clip. And it comes in 7 sizes, and it has a silver ribbon surrounded by pink beads for breast cancer awareness. So they can be found at lilarose.com/RL2MSI. And I'll put these links in the show notes for you so you can click directly. Now, that is an affiliate link. So if you click on that and purchase some hair clips, anything, whether it's that link or not, whether it's that clip or not, I will receive a commission for that. So now on to the show. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Warrior Words podcast. We are blessed to have Gillian Lichota here with us today. Gillian, welcome to the Warrior Words podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Well, I appreciate that you were able to make time in your schedule. I know that you are super busy, and we'll get into just exactly what you do a little later in this episode. But for now, I want to start with your breast cancer story. This is being recorded in October and will be released in October, which is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And I have read your story. And again, that's probably something else we'll touch on later in the episode, is why you wrote your story. But it's an incredible story, and I would love to have you share it with our audience.
Oh, I'm happy to. Every time I share my story, I heal in some way, and I hope that the story that I have to tell helps to heal others and offers hope. I was originally diagnosed with breast cancer at the age of 35. I had just turned 35, and had been going through a few years of infertility treatments to conceive a child with my husband, and I was unsuccessful. Multiple attempts to do so, I was unsuccessful, until we became pregnant, and then sadly lost the pregnancy in my second trimester. And I was really very, very devastated. It was such a journey to get there. I thought it would happen way quicker than it did. And every time, I got the negative pregnancy test, I just felt awful and sad and defeated and didn't think it was ever going to happen for us. And I had a really wonderful doctor who encouraged me to give it one more try, which I did. And leading up to the process of the egg retrieval, I started to notice this very heavy burning sensation in my breast. And I thought to myself, oh, I wonder what that is. And I kept feeling around, and I was in the shower, and it was, sort of the time of day when light was coming through and shadows were being cast in strange ways. And I could notice a dimple forming pretty quickly. And at that time, I had been putting lots of estrogen and progesterone into my body in preparation for the egg retrieval. So at the time of egg retrieval, I showed it to my doctor, and she encouraged me to see my OBGYN to have it looked at. So there wasn't a history of breast cancer in my family, and I naively didn't give it much thought. I just sort of chalked it up to side effects of the drugs. So I'm Canadian. My husband's Canadian. We went up to our place in our lake house in Canada to visit family and just relax. And I sort of thought it was just going to go away. And, I was waiting for my appointment to see my OBGYN, which time was going to be to do a pregnancy test to see whether or not the IVF cycle worked. And it was getting worse and worse and worse over a period of 3 weeks. So we returned back to the United States, and I went to my appointment. I was elated to find out that I was indeed pregnant again. But she did usher me off to another floor to have radiology do an ultrasound of my breast. Well, talk about a bit of a yo-yo. I went from this excitement that was certainly short-lived to find out that I was pregnant again, to then find out that I had a lump in my breast that had all of the characteristics of being pregnant. So I immediately had a biopsy, which indicated that I had pregnancy-related breast cancer. So the very thing that I wanted all of my life was to be a mother, to have that deep maternal connection with a child, was quite literally going to kill me. So I had some very tough decisions in front of me to make, and I had a very supportive team of doctors and my husband, family members, and so forth. And my options were I could do nothing and wait until I delivered my child to seek treatment. However, that would have meant that I might have, the cancer might have progressed because it was being fed by the estrogen and progesterone as my fetus developed. And chances were that I wouldn't end up being a mother for very long. The other option was to abort the pregnancy, which I didn't want. I was happy that it was a choice for me, but at that time, that was not what I wanted. Or because I was at Johns Hopkins in Baltimore, which is a teaching hospital, I was able to have the option of having an experimental anesthesia where I would be partly awake for the procedure. But what it would do is it would eliminate the narcotics in my system that might cause me to have a spontaneous miscarriage. So I opted for number 3. And so I had my breast removed 11 days later. And then I started chemotherapy while I was pregnant after 20 weeks. And so I always think about the fact that, there was such a strange juxtaposition, right? You're pregnant, you're told to do all of these things to keep your body and your child healthy, watch what you put in your body. And here I was putting in chemotherapy, killing these cells. I was a lot of trust to put into the medical profession, right? And I leaned into the experience of pouring all of my positivity into loving my baby and thought to myself, I'm just going to not focus on or process what I'm going through. I'm just going to survive it until my child is born. Because at that point, I knew that, stress can also cause miscarriages. And I really wanted to be a mom. So I was, blessed with the safe delivery of my son, Kylan, on St. Patrick's Day.
Oh, wow.
He'll be 12 next year. But I was really, really fortunate. And after I delivered my son, about 3 weeks later, I started pretty hardcore chemotherapy and then multiple surgeries. I think I had 6 in total. I had my other breast removed preventatively, and started, long-term sort of maintenance therapy with an aromatase inhibitor, and thought the worst was behind me. And so what I did was, I poured myself into motherhood and thought I beat this cancer thing, and went straight back into my life as a marine biologist. And really busy work schedule. But I said to myself that I wanted to get better, because for those of us who've been through this sort of experience, breast cancer can really change your body. And for me, it really, like the drugs, I felt like my whole body became inflamed. I swelled up. I put on probably 40 extra pounds of weight. And I went from being an athlete where I rock climbed, I mountain climbed, and I was really involved in triathlons, like leading up to the point in time I found out I had cancer. And I really wanted to get back into feeling good again in my skin, And so I I felt very alone, that there weren't many organizations out there to help someone who was my age, who was a young person facing, recovery after breast
Mhm.
cancer. It was I was sort of, the support groups that I joined were, was everything from young to old, and I didn't find something that really resonated for me that um, involved, really tackling the kind of unique challenges that young people have,
Right.
the needs. And so I circled myself with, I now call them my wellness collective of experts that helped me to feel good from a positive psychology standpoint that would allow me to stay dedicated to the kinds of things like, mindfulness and meditation, regular exercise, and eating really well. Um, and so I had previously set my sights when I was being wheeled into my surgery of what I wanted to do coming out of this. And I had a really wonderful nurse navigator at Johns Hopkins who'd been through breast cancer. I think it was 10 years prior to me.
Mhm.
And her name was Beth, and she was wonderful. And she just said, Gillian, this is a journey. Take it one step at a time, slowly, slowly. And I thought to myself, oh, pulley, my friends in Tanzania, I'm going to go to Tanzania and I'm going to summit Mount Kilimanjaro.
Because that's slow, right? That's taking it slow right there.
I know. So I was like, yes, I'm going to do that. So I set my sights on it, and I had these experts around me that were really holding me up and said, you can do this. And I did. And so I came 6 months after, I was done with my surgeries and my treatments. It's a lonely place because they like hand you some pamphlets and you're like, okay, now
Mhm.
what?
Right,
And
exactly. Uh-huh.
yeah, and I at that point I told my doctor, like, I'm gonna, summit Mount Kilimanjaro. And she was like, okay. So I showed up with my computer afterwards, after I had summited, and I said, this was life-changing for me. And I showed her the pictures, and I felt it was very cathartic, right? Because you're
Mhm.
summiting a mountain, it's the air's thin and it's quiet, and you start to process. And it was the first time I had started to process what I had been through, the gravity of it
Mm.
all, and how it changed me. And really kind of highlighted or underscored what was actually important to me
Mm. Yeah.
to begin with.
Mhm.
Didn't quite learn my lesson the first time around. As I said, I returned back to my career, which I loved. It was where I was at that point in time was a very toxic, let's just say, male-dominated work environment
Mm.
where I was struggling for sure.
Yeah.
And I leaned into that and thought to myself, well, I'm going to show you, true to my personality. And lo and behold, 5 years later, my breast cancer returned as metastatic. Now, in the meantime, when I was that first visit, when I went back to see my oncologist and I brought um, my laptop in to show pictures, she had said to me, this is really inspirational. I'm really proud of you. Can I connect you with some of the other young women in my clinic that are really struggling? And I said, of course, for sure.
Mhm.
And so she connected me with 5 women, and they all reached out to me and just were really excited about what I had done. And
Yeah.
they basically all had the same message. They asked me, like, how did you do that? I want to do that. Can you help me to do that? And I thought to myself, wow, okay, so I'm not the only one facing these like these needs and unique challenges as a young
Mhm.
person
Yeah.
who, also, they want something different coming out of this. I thought, okay, well, maybe I'm onto something here. Maybe there's some way that I can help um, other young people facing similar challenges. And
Right.
so true to my nature, I returned back to my career as a marine biologist. And then on the back end, I was planning in my mind my desire to start a nonprofit organization. And so I was burning the candle at both ends. And I was on a ski trip in Colorado when I was buckling my boots. It was my 40th birthday. Had a big group of people there, fun week ahead. And I was buckling my ski boots and I was bending down and I felt this like real burning pain in my, like my back, kind of my lower lobe area where my lung is.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I called my oncologist. I was on a really great, I had a great relationship with her. And I feel like I've done something, like there's something wrong. And she's like, well, what sports have you been playing?
She knows you. Yeah.
No, I was like, yeah, well, I don't think so. Um, so I waited a little bit, maybe a month or two, and it was getting worse. And I was in the chair getting my teeth cleaned, and I was just sobbing. And my dentist was like, should I stop? He thought it was him. And I was like, yeah, I need you to stop. And I immediately called my doctor and just said, something's wrong. And I was right. And it's like it's something I say to women all the time. Just like if you see something, say something. If you feel something, you need to advocate on behalf of yourself. I can't stress that enough, especially for young people where a lot of doctors who aren't well read up on statistics of breast cancer in young people, might dismiss it. And so often young people find the breast cancer themselves. So anyway, I found out that I had a trip planned already with my family. My in-laws used to live in Switzerland. We at the time were spending some time in Italy, and I was waiting for the biopsy results from the tests that were done just before I left, and I just was like, oh, I know it. I know that it's going to come back as metastatic. I just had this sinking feeling intuitively.
Right.
The day that I was waiting for my doctor, my oncologist to call me, I woke up at the crack of dawn, and I was just in this weird, like crazy space of fear and sadness and terror and anger and disbelief and shock. And it was just like literally coursing through my veins like hot magma. I was agitated. I couldn't sit still. And I just was gazing forward, and I looked on the refrigerator, and there was the magnet on the refrigerator that said, it read, just when the caterpillar thought the world was over, it became a butterfly. And that for me,
I got chills.
Yeah, that for me has stuck. I have it a few places in my house because it's a reminder that though I have been now living with metastatic breast cancer for 8 years, that transformation is possible and new life can begin afterwards. So,
so true.
Yeah. So when I, after I was, diagnosed, we were still in Italy for quite a while, and I really entered in this like deep, dark, cavernous space of despair. And what does this mean for me? And, we returned to North America, and I continued to just feel so hopeless. And I was, a friend of mine had reached out. I was a group of moms that we were training for triathlons together for fun. Laughing.
I'm sorry. I laugh because I know I could never even do one part of a triathlon. So.
Right. I know. She herself was a doctor, and she just left a message on my phone and said, I don't have words that can make you feel better, but I know what might make you feel better. We're going to be at the pool at this time if you want to come. And, I listened to the message. I sat on the end of the bed, and I was kind of like irritated that message was left. And then I thought to myself, you know what? I'm going to the pool. And I came down the stairs, and my husband turned and looked at me. And, his description of it is quite funny, where he, was just shocked that I got out of bed and that I was saying nothing, and I was just going out the door, and he's like, what's going on? What happened? I showed up at the pool and I took my aggression out in the pool and I swam my heart out. And I just entered into this like meditative state where I kind of started like for the first time, started really processing what this new life would be for me. And I had my best swim time ever. And I came out with this giant smile. My friends all looked at me and said, "This is awesome." They weren't sure what to do with me. And I came home and I said to my husband that, well, I'm just going to change the way I live my life. And that was the beginning of my transformation, as I call it.
Mhm.
And I started the I Rise Above Foundation right after that.
And I'm thinking, based on what you said, that it has something to do with young people and breast cancer. And of course, truth, full transformation. I've been on your email list for about 4 years now. So, so please tell us a little bit more about the iRise Foundation. I
Yeah,
Rise Above. I'm sorry, forgive me.
yeah.
I Rise
I
Above
Rise Above
Foundation.
Foundation. Yeah. So, I know before that we were coming to this podcast, you had asked me, could you find beauty in the
Yes,
brokenness?
yes.
And I really appreciated that question because I often when I meet people and I like new people and I explain my story or I tell them I'm, living with metastatic breast cancer, there's always this quick like this pause of, did I just hear you right? And then there's a scan of my body, like head to toe to make sure
Yeah.
you're right. And because there's this expectation, I think that when you get that breast cancer diagnosis, you just become, broken down and defeated. And,
Yes.
I am a firm believer that, um, to be broken open, often there's an enlightenment that demands that we kind of collide with some of these harsh realities that happen to us in life, right? And I see it as it like awakens your soul to allow the possibility of transformation, right?
Mhm.
And when I was diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer, very quickly I recognized that I had two choices in front of me. And my choices were that I could welcome in cancer to be my teacher or not. And if I welcomed cancer in to be my teacher, it could lead to the possibility of me being broken open to allow transformation to occur because I definitely had some things that I really definitely needed to unpack. And by doing so, I would, not let anything more of cancer, like let cancer take anything more away from me, that I was going to be in control moving forward. And that to me offered me so much hope. And
Yeah.
because I also believe that, your body follows where your mind goes. And I felt like I wanted to just, defeat this. I wanted to like be here as long as possible and, um, you know, I guess beat the odds. Because
Mhm.
when I was originally diagnosed, they gave me a 32% chance of living more than 5 years. Um, so I was like,
And
heck no. Not
and I believe you've already said it's been 7, 8 years.
8 years,
8
yeah.
years. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, so yeah, there was zero way I was gonna let breast cancer take anything more of me. And so I've been on this uh journey, to seek wholeness with my time. And that for me has allowed me to find my voice again, to reclaim my power, to rewrite my story, um, and really kind of dive into who I am as a person, seek my authentic self. I know it can be a bit of a tagline, but it's
Yeah.
true. The more you get to know who you are and why you do the things you do or not, you become closer to who you are as a human being. And that was really important to me. So, Yeah. So I started the I Rise Above Foundation, which is a nonprofit that is based in North America. We support women in their 20s, 30s, and 40s, both in the United States and Canada. And we believe that, young women should feel empowered and supported and inspired to cultivate a beautiful life during and after breast cancer. So we support women in all stages, not just early stages, metastatic as well. And we offer various kinds of programs, like program offerings that are age appropriate, that tackles the needs of young people. Because they're different. They're just inherently different than our postmenopausal counterparts. We have
Right here.
yeah. Well, but I mean, we have, women who hadn't even they're so young. The youngest that we've had in our programs was 23 at the time.
Oh, yeah.
And hadn't even thought about whether she really wanted to be a mother or what it meant to start chemotherapy. Do I need to preserve my eggs? And then being a single person, then how do I start to have those conversations as I'm getting back into the dating scene or something, and so we have a wellness collective that, circles women with these kinds of expertise that will support those challenges. So we have everything from virtual and in-person wellness programs. We have various workshops and webinars that people can sign up for free. We have book clubs, and we also have restorative retreats and adventure trips that we welcome women to sign up to join. And those are all in nature, with the intention of just being able to disconnect from the world the digital world,
right.
So that you can just more dive into who you are as a human being and not worry about some of that external noise. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
And I think you mentioned to me about during the month of October, you have something special on those retreats.
Yeah, so we have announced our 2025 adventure trips. And so the first one is in the end of May to do, we hike to Machu Picchu, and then we do Rainbow Mountain. So that's the end of April into May. And then we have the Tour de Mont Blanc in September, and that is France, Italy, and Switzerland.
Oh, beautiful.
And so during the month of October, those who are interested to sign up, they get $200 off of the cost of the experience after their deposit. And we offer I Rise Above does offset some of the experience for the women, but we also offer a crowdfunding platform and toolkit so that women can, raise money within their community to help to support this healing journey. And most women take advantage of that, and the success rate has been really high. A lot of people's support network, they want to know what they can do. And a lot of people don't know what to do, right? Like how best to support you, or even how to have a conversation about breast cancer. It can be really awkward for a lot of people. They're just not sure.
Yeah, I think that's a very real need. Just knowing what to say or what to do, because I think the person who's diagnosed, especially if it's the first time, you don't know what you don't know. And you don't know what you're going to need, and the reaction to chemo or the number of surgeries is different for everybody.
Yeah.
And so you don't know necessarily what to ask for, or what you actually need. And I think that's an incredible blessing to offer people, because you just don't know what you don't know.
This is true. It's like, I kind of the analogy that I make for those that are watching your podcast, it's like the first time you're having a child, everyone wants to give you their bad birthing stories. And you're like, this is why are you telling me this? And so sometimes those conversations can be quite awkward where they're not sure what to say, and sometimes it can be counterintuitive. So we offer this as a way that people can really support the needs of women.
Are there any requirements for these women to sign up for these trips?
It's a great question. So they just have had to have experience, been through breast cancer as a young person. We have for the Peru trip, we have somebody in her mid 50s that has signed up but went through breast cancer in her 40s. And so the idea is that it's a shared experience. They understand the challenges, and it can be so beautiful when you have somebody who's, younger, on the younger end of the scale, who's maybe in her 20s or early 30s, to garner some wisdom from the women that had walked through that before you and had some like incredible learning experiences coming out of it. And as we do when we age, we have wisdom in it, and it can really help to support another person's journey. And that's just what we want to do.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I love about community. And I've had a couple other episodes where guests have talked about the need for community.
Yes.
And it's like, even if you're just one step ahead of somebody else, you have something that you can offer. Somebody who's coming along that path or that journey behind you, you have something that you can offer, even if it's just, holding out your hand or smiling or listening.
I often say that when, women gather, magic happens. And this is so true in our trips and retreats. For example, we had a restorative retreat in Costa Rica earlier this year. And it is just, I feel so honored to be able to witness this incredible bonding that happens, because there's an unsaid understanding. There's an immediate, like, I love you and I'm here to support you. I understand. I get you. I get what you're going through, even though people's experiences through the cancer journey can be very different. What the common thread is are the gamut of emotions that we go through, the skin anxiety when there's, an upcoming, test that we have to go and make sure there's no new cancer or progression or that sort of thing. It is, I have a wonderful group of friends that I grew up with, and I have had them for most of my life. I have a wonderful, supportive husband, but they don't quite get it. They want to get it, but they don't quite get it. And that's okay. But I have my community, my breast friends,
Yeah.
who, we were on like this WhatsApp texting chain, and it's just awesome because there, whenever there's just something coming up, then this message is sent, and then we're just there to support each other. And the one thing I'll say, which has been really amazing and validating to me and fills my heart with like so much joy, is that we have such a high retention for not only our wellness programs, but also, our trips and our retreats, is that we get the same people that want to come back. And I get such enjoyment out of seeing, like, they'll just get together outside of that. They'll go on like some ski trip together, or, it's something else that they're doing, going to a baseball game or a concert. And it's amazing, because also too, what's come out of this is that the caregivers, the partners, the spouses, the children, they've all got to mix and meet. And that is incredible, right?
Yeah.
And so I really believe when you change the dialogue around breast cancer, you challenge old paradigms, and you change perceptions of what it means to go through breast cancer as a young person, you change the experience for young women, and that has a ripple effect, right? When
it does.
When a young woman can go through, when a young woman can go through breast cancer and her needs are met in a different way, in a way where she feels supported and she has a sense of a real sense of agency over her body and decision making, and feels empowered with information and inspired to do the things that, she may have not thought she could do. The outcome is better for everybody.
Yeah.
And that is where, where I want to take this. And until we have a cure, which, I'm hopeful that there will be a cure soon.
Mhm.
There's been wonderful advances in medicine and early detection.
Mhm.
And but I'm sure that many people out there have read I think it was the Washington Post or the New York Times wrote an article at the start of Breast Cancer Awareness Month about how, it's still the number of women, young people being diagnosed with breast cancer. And I add that breast cancer in young people is most aggressive, is on the rise. And so that says to me that, we need to do more.
Yeah. That 1 in 8 number that you see everywhere is sobering. It really is it's a scary statistic, because in your family, you probably have more than 8 women.
Yeah.
And so you probably know someone. So in your family alone, much less your circle of friends.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. That's right.
So, well, at the beginning of this conversation, I mentioned that I had read your story. And I
Yeah.
know that you have a project going on about writing your story. Can you share a little bit about that with us before we wrap up today?
Sure, I would love to. At the beginning of this year, a woman named Jessica Buchanan reached out to me, who is a New York Times bestselling author and a speaker and an educator. Wrote a book about her experience of being taken hostage by Somali pirates while on a humanitarian mission in Somalia.
Wow.
And she was held captive for 93 days in the desert for ransom from the American government. This was back in 2012. And they were requesting $45 million.
Wow.
And every time they were requesting, they would do mock executions of this poor woman. Anyway, long story short, President Obama sent in Navy SEALs to rescue her. And then she wrote about it afterwards and became a best-selling author. And she has a wonderful TED Talk that I really recommend people to listen to. It really inspired me. And I felt very connected to her when she reached out to me. I believe the title of it was, if, change in your life is a sign of living. I think it's something like that.
Okay.
But what happened was that the experience of being broken transformed her, which is back to your original,
Yeah.
question in the beginning, where she started to see things differently in 93 days being held hostage in the desert. That was very sobering for her. And so she started Soul Speak Press and an anthology series called Deserts to Mountaintops. And so she reached out to me. She caught wind of my story, and invited me to be a contributing author to the volume 3, which is the Pilgrimage of Motherhood. And so I started the writing process thinking I was just going to write about breast cancer within the context of, write about my motherhood in the context of breast cancer. But as you know, you've read my story. It comes out in January 2025. It became much more than that, very deep for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I started to really heal from the process of writing. It really had a profound impact on me. Soul Speak Press approached me about starting an anthology series for young women to really unpack and tell their stories. And it's, often breast cancer is just a catalyst that can start that process of, breaking open and really diving in. And it often, a Band-Aid gets ripped off of an old wound that is in there. But it's all tied together. It's like these lessons that you're learning. And so I thought it was a wonderful idea because you can write a blog and you can write an article for a magazine, but those are that's a finite space, right? Like
Right.
maybe
Yeah.
800 words to 1,000, and it's not enough to really tell a story. Where these chapters are about 6,000 words. And so I thought, you know what? I feel like I'm really healing from this process. I really believe in it. And I think that, by telling my story, I think that others can, see themselves in that story or pull something from
Mhm.
it. And I want it to really bring that to our community and share with them. So, for the start of Breast Cancer Awareness Month, we launched our new endeavor, and that is our anthology project. And so it's called Rising Above. And this volume 1 is our transformational journey to wholeness after breast cancer. So we're looking for contributing authors who are interested in participating and telling their story. Soul Speak Press offers an incredible, you know, um, structure for writing and coaching, and they put a couple thousand hours into each anthology volume.
Mhm.
So it also there's like a book trailer filming. I have one coming up in Philadelphia soon. There's an audio book recording, so it's sold on Amazon and other sellers, online vendors.
Mhm.
Um, and so every one has been a New York Times bestseller so far. So I'm hoping that with Jessica's magic, Soul Speak Press's support, that the
Mhm.
Rising Above Anthology Project can be one of those too. And so we have some writers who are going to be part of this group already signed up to do so. Um, and so that first session will start in January. I think it's January 17th. And the goal is to have it launched for sale for people to start to purchase for this time next year. I think it's either October 14th or 17th, I think 14th,
Mhm.
where it'll be published. So just in time, for Breast Cancer Awareness Month to be able to share their stories and help to heal others.
Oh, that is wonderful. And I'm gonna make sure that we have all the links for both I Rise Above Foundation and the trips that you offered and that anthology project in the show notes. So let me just clarify. Anyone who wants to apply for that does not have to be an author or a writer, because they
Correct.
will have someone alongside them to help them to
Yeah,
write and craft their story.
that is absolutely right. Most of the women actually are not writers, and Jessica is an incredible writing coach. I can't even say enough. When she approached me in the beginning, I was like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I can write. I just was like, I don't know if I want to get that vulnerable. And it turns out I needed to get that vulnerable.
Yes.
I
Yes.
really
And like I
did.
said, I've read it and it is very, very vulnerable and raw and real, and elicited several emotions and tears as I read it. So hopefully then once it is published, I can come back and update the show notes to get that link in there so people can read your story as well. So I want to thank you. You have given us so much, and you just blessed us with your story and your time. Can you offer one more blessing to our audience? And is there any advice or warrior words that you would like to share with anybody who listens to this episode, whether it's in October or, next February?
No, thank you for that. I think that really, we are all at different stages along the way within our breast cancer journey. And for those that have not experienced it, it's the same sort of advice that I would give to anybody, and that is to breathe, um, to look within, to trust your intuitive voice, and I believe it'll always lead to you to where you need to be. And so, if you feel something, say something, advocate for yourself. and just trust that voice.
Thank you. Now, would you mind sharing with everybody where they can find you? And I will put the links in the show notes, but I'd like you to share where they can reach out to you.
Sure. So our organization is called I Rise Above Foundation.org. So I Rise is one word, above and foundation.
And like I said, we'll get that in the show notes.
Yeah, and
So-
follow us on Instagram.
Absolutely. Okay. Everybody follow. All right. Well, thank you, Gillian. I really appreciate your time and coming on here to just serve our listeners and just be a blessing to people. So thank you.
You bet. Anytime. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. Gillian's story wows me on so many levels. First, she's here to tell her story after being diagnosed with terminal metastatic breast cancer. That alone is a miracle. She was given a 32% chance of surviving. And she shared something with me after we stopped recording that she wanted me to share with you. In addition to defying that 32% chance, she was just informed that she is now 6+ years with no evidence of disease. No evidence of disease. Those are words every cancer patient longs to hear. I know how precious those words were to me on December 23rd, 2020. During our conversation, Gillian said so many things that resonated with me and mirrored my own experience. She was so easy to connect with and relate to, even I think for those who have never experienced breast cancer. One thing was her realization and acceptance of the fact that cancer had something to teach her. That's a perspective that I don't think a lot of us have, or we even think about. I know I didn't at the beginning of my journey. I suspect a lot of us focus on the negatives. Will we die? How will cancer impact our lives, our bodies, our families? And if we do survive, is our life as we know it over? Please know that this is natural and this is normal. These are our normal human feelings. And so there's nothing wrong if you're asking those questions. But this segues into the other thing she said that stood out to me, that refrigerator magnet she saw in Italy when she was diagnosed the second time. The caterpillar thought its life was over, and then it became a butterfly. Gillian talked about that transformation. It's hard. It's grueling. It can take us down to a pit of despair. But we can't stay there. Cancer, like all traumatic experiences, can teach us something if we allow it to transform us. And that transformation is likely to be different for each of us. You don't have to start a foundation like Gillian did, but if you see a need, you could do that. It may be as simple as regarding your eating habits, your sleep, your exercise. It could be repairing relationships in your life or forgiving yourself. It could be becoming part of a community where you can help someone on that path behind you. What does your traumatic experience need to teach you? And what transformation needs to occur in your life so you can go from a caterpillar to a butterfly? I love how God designed nature in such a way to provide us with these valuable lessons. We only need to look for the beauty and be open to its lessons. Something to think about this week. But before I wrap up, I want to encourage you to go to the IRiseAboveFoundation.org. Check out the restorative trips, the book club, the anthology project that Gillian mentioned. If you're not personally impacted by breast cancer, please share this episode and Gillian's resources with someone you know who is. Like we said in the episode, sometimes it's difficult to know what to say or do but sharing these resources might just be a way for you to do that. And I'll leave you with one final thing. The mission of the I Rise Above Foundation, taken directly from their website, and I quote, "Believe the diagnosis, but challenge the prognosis." Until we meet again, armor up, fight the good fight, seek beauty, and make your words warrior words. God bless.